And would have been a very nice time to have you join us in that discuss. But let's move away from that so we don't get to digress and focus on the exactitude of what the real fathers in Akwa Ibom State have said about their position on the water resources bill. Because, like you've listed, we've had several challenges, not because our state government do not have the funds to invest in those areas, but because of the administrative bottlenecks associated with the legislative leaves or the exclusive leaves of the federal government, rather. And of course, at this point in time, when we are conversing for a situation where we have the lease, a lot of things move from the exclusive leaves of the federal government to the state government, and furthermore to the local government area. Do you think this is in the right? First, let's feel the pulse. What are the real fathers in Akwa Ibom State saying? Are they in support of the bill, or they're against such bill being enacted as a law in Nigeria?
First, it's not just about the royal fathers. Like I said earlier, about almost 30 some other social cultural groups are signing up as we speak. We have the royal fathers, we have the Akwa Ibom BBO, Dari Bibela, the Elders Forum, we have the Oral Think Tank, the BBO, Ibom People's Congress, USA Incorporated, the BBO Academics Roundtable, the Pan Niger Delta Forum, Akwa Ibom State Chapter, Akwa Ibom Legal Citizen Assembly, AKEKA, Center for Leadership Development and Conflict Resolution, National Council of Women's Society, Akwa Ibom State Chapter, Akwa Ibom Human Rights Community, Iwareke, Internal Foundation, Eastern Ogulu Consultative, South Study Group, ODBBU, Advocacy for Group, Followership, Leadership, Justice, Peace Initiative, Afrodia, Asamson Development. We have the Veterans Voice Initiative, Ibom Patriots, Akwa Ibom Special Fathers Forum, Equip Union, Nigerian Good Governance Group, Oral Youth Movement Oyong, Oral Liberation Youth, and the Akwa Ibom Project, and others that have signed up. Those were the groups. So, what were the observations? Let me just take the observations that we made and then the resolutions which we are working on as we speak. That very converge was co-chaired by Senator Ibawesian, the distinguished Senator Ibawesian, who is the chairman of panel, national chairman of panel, and was co-chaired with the paramount ruler of Odonko, William Bassi Etemele, and quite a number of other royal fathers, and the paramount ruler Bichu, the post paramount ruler, is the chairman of the board of Open Forum. These were the, let me just take straight the observations. The first observation was that Open Forum was commended through the initiator and the convener, Citizen Mathew Okono, and then the board chairman, His Majesty Edet and the paramount of it too, and other collaborative organizations were commended for putting up such a critical dialogue. And then the second was that the efforts of some groups like Adari BB, the Elders Forum, led by Dr. Manuel Kwanabo, and Ibom People's Congress, USA Incorporated, led by Professor John G. Okon, for their interface with the traditional institution in Akwa Ibom State over the water resources bill, as well as their petition against its legislation. Those two groups have done a lot before now, just that they were not really heard of, but they have done quite a lot. And then we commended the stakeholders in Niger Delta and the country and others for openly campaigning against the bill. For now, Pandef, Ohanezendigo, Afenifere, Southern Amidobelt Forum, they have made their statements that they don't want it, they have rejected that bill outrightly. So they were commended. And they described the bill as oppressive, draconian, obnoxious, and anti-people aimed at Akwa Ibom State, the Niger Delta region, as prime targets because the region has more water bodies in Nigeria. The fifth observation was that noted that the bill is a complete misplacement of priorities and a deliberate attempt to deprive the people of Niger Delta region and other coastal states resources freely given to them by God. 6. It observed that the bill is indirectly against the abrogation of the onshore-offshore oil dichotomy that had been abrogated by the National Assembly, leading to the payment of 13% derivation on oil to oil-producing states. The fear is that if water belongs to the federal government controls water. what next will happen? Some foreign persons can go to court and say, federal government owns the water, and the resources in the water belongs to federal government, and will now go to another round of crisis over the 13% derivation, which is not even sufficient. And then we also have they noted that the bill contravenes the provision of section 17 and 20 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It worried that the passage of the bill would force many Niger Delta people whose main occupation is fishing into joblessness, deny the people across access to their natural resources, and eventually turn them into slaves in their fatherland. It is just obvious that there is going to be insecurity, there is going to be increase in poverty. We are already having 123 million Nigerians undergoing multidimensional poverty from government-owned data.
All right, I'd like to pause you there because we have to take our first recess. When we come back, we'll dwell more on the stance of the respective geopolitical zones on the issue of the Water Resources Bill. But right about now, we'll take our first recess. When we come back, our conversations continue on the floor of the House. Please stay with us.
Many thanks for staying tuned. Good morning and welcome to the news headlines at 9. President Muhammadu Buhari says Libya-Russia-Ukraine conflict stalling security effort. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo says Nigeria can produce highest quality individuals in 2023 elections. Highest quality individuals to run most efficient government and private institutions if right values of hard work are taught and imbibed. Court summons the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele over $53 million Paris Club deed. Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele and governors to meet over withdrawal policy and Naira redesign. Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to conduct mock accreditation ahead of February polls. On the foreign scene, Philippine court clears journalist Maria Reza of tax evasion. In sport, fan charged with assault on Arsenal keeper. And that's the news update for this hour on Planet 101.1 FMU. I am Dara Udoma.
So welcome aboard, fly anywhere in the world. Catch every glimpse of the clear blue skies. Take a seat of comfort and soar the wings of excellence. Fly in the air, let's get you there. Get up-to-date information and insight on topics in and around the aviation industry and stand a chance to win exclusive gifts on this 30-minute program every Thursday from 4 p.m. on Touchdown Thursday with Ibom Air here on Planet 101.1 FM Uyo. This program is proudly powered by Ibom Air, the new experience.
When I call my guy, before I talk, my man, how far? I go here.
You have less than 1 minute for your call.
Auto waiting, but with Edet double, now steady relating.
My guy, house, how area, how everything.
Stay connected for longer with the Airtel Double plan that gives you 70 minutes talk time plus 3 gigabytes data for just 1,000 naira. Dial *141#. Select my area now. Airtel, the smartphone network. You fit to buy your phone today and you go pay later. iPhone today, both new ones and not use the ones. Samsung phone today, Tecno, Itel, Oppo, Infinix, Redmi, Nokia, and other latest phones and accessories. Music box, laptop, liquid screen guard for to protect your phone from breakage. Then they repair phones, so both software and hardware with the home delivery services within Uyo Divine Ugo Communication. For anything we concern phones and accessories, you must have join to confirm Divine Ugo Communication. Then they for number 1 Ikote Mini Road, opposite Ibom Plaza, Uyo Akwa Ibom Stage, or make you call 080-680-93884 or 090-923-12971. Our shop they open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. from Monday go reach Saturday. Amapiano and Afrobeats, they dine together. The two giants, Niger and South Ibom show. Plenty drama, romance, 247. Come see where Yawa the gas Yawa.
Make gonna catch all the excitement on Top Go TV Jolly, Max, and Super on channel 29. Reconnect today on my Go TV app or dial star 288 hash. Big Brother titles now for people who don't reach or pass 18 years old. Our headline sponsors now Bamboo, Shutterwave, and Lotto Star.
The People's Parliament is brought to you courtesy of JIA Outdoor Services. JIA Outdoor Services, a member of the Mbarakas Group, owns and manages billboards and advertising services in and outside Akwa Ibom State. Why not visit them today or call this number 0803-741-2340. JIA Outdoor Services, a member of the Mbarakas Group.
Joining us, and of course, always being there on the floor of the House. And if you just joined us, this is the People's Parliament, and it's the 13th plenary session for the month of January 2023. And it's been quite a fruitful deliberation so far. And in not this in time, we'll be opening the phone line, and you can call in on the number 0902 223 1011 or 0817 624 at 565. Listen online at www.planet101fm.ng. And of course, join the conversation on Facebook at Planet Radio 101.1 FM Uyo. I quickly let the House Leader take us to some of the comments that we have, and I know that the phone lines are buzzing already. So we'll take 1 or 2 calls and a couple more comments before returning to the floor of the House. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary. Hello, good morning. Okay, please try and connect us back. Seem to be having some network challenge. And please, when you call, enable to speak up so parliamentarians can get to hear you and, of course, respond accordingly. Parliamentarian MKO and a guest in the studio this morning, and we're talking about water resources bill. Over to you, House Leader, for some of the comments we have.
Yes, there's been some interesting comments on Facebook with respect to the first discourse of the day, and that's around the National Water Resources Bill. Demega Ebu says, Mr. Speaker and the Leader of the House, National Water Resources Bill is a calculated attempt to continue keeping the southern part of Nigeria in bondage, so all legislators from the south must take the bill very serious and should not even allow it to be read twice. Well, it's already scaled through second reading. Our bill has been taken already and controlled by the federal government and peanuts given to us. And we can't allow this to happen to us again. This is not time to play politics, but protect the interest of our generation unborn. Say no to National Water Resources Bill. Thank you. Thank you very much as well for joining us. And this one says, this coming from Parliamentarian Noye Idion. Good morning, parliamentarians. Vice President Emio Sibanjo is saying the truth, and I wish the youth will use the opportunity wisely, as I believe if they can unite, then Nigerians will be good and better. And for the rampant debt among civil servants, what is the reason for that? If something like this is going on, it means that there will be shortage shortage, I believe that's what he meant, of manpower amongst the civil servants, which would take some time. All right, interesting thoughts indeed. But just to follow up on some of the comments that have been made about the National Water Resources Bill. We're trying to factor in the Akwa Ibom angle, yeah. So it's important to equally look at what the government is saying, aside what the traditional rulers are equally saying, so we could juxtapose them and see whether or not we are all aligning with the same thought. Because I think there was some controversies as well. Microing it down to Akwa Ibom State, there were some persons who were urging the governor to equally side with some of the governors who had supported the National Water Resources Bill. And I remember the governor's response. It was very clear. He said it was dangerous to not just Akwa Ibom State, but to the south side as well. It was a dangerous idea to allow the federal government control our waters. You know, when this news first came up, you know, I found it laughable. And I thought we had scored a very big point, referring to Nigerians, when the bill was thrown out after a first and second reading, only for it to be reintroduced again. And then MKO was saying a short while ago, what was the purpose of reintroducing the bill that was outrightly rejected? It means there perhaps something nefarious that the proponents of this bill are hoping to achieve, but the rest of us do not know. Because when we're talking about water, yes, it's a natural resource, but it's largely different from, say, liquid black gold, such as petrol, or every other kind of natural resources that you find about, because water is some crucial and important element of life that should be actually given free to everyone, and should not be something that should be exclusively, in my opinion, controlled, especially when you have so much of them in abundance. If you take a bill like this to somewhere in, you know, the deepest part of the Sahara, I think it would scale through because of the shortages of water. Then you could say control of the circulation and its use is paramount for governments and countries of that nature, but not here in Africa or Nigeria, to say the least, where we have this water in abundance. I think the people should be allowed to control what naturally belongs to them. I'm not saying we should not have proper regulation, because whether you like it or not, abuse of water in itself could also be, you know, could have an adverse effect on the nation's economy if not properly regulated. But at who should pass or should take the decisions, or at whose decks should the ball stop when it comes to taking decisions of how this water should be managed? For me, I think it should be allowed to stay the way it is, as opposed to allowing the federal government take control of it. We're not even done yet with the debate around the onshore-offshore dichotomy, which the likes of Obong Victor Ta, you know, fought keenly and won for us. And today, what we're managing out of that series of fight and agitation is a mere 13% derivative. So what are we going to get in the event that we allow the federal government to have their way and control the nation's waters? We may be left with little or nothing.
Well, if I'm allowed to speak as a Nigerian, speaking as a Nigerian at this point in time, I would say the water resources bill doesn't just sit well with any member of the Nigerian society, except those who have ulterior motive and or their selfish interest. And I like to toe the lines of the president this morning, who have said, for instance, the issue of religious crises and killings is not a religion issue, but rather that of criminal elements within the Nigerian society who are using it for their own political interests and selfish gains. Now, let's look at the present scenario. We are talking about the destruction of waters by the different multinationals who are currently operating, the dumping of industrial waste and other things. We're still talking about the debate about the cleanup in Ogoni land, which has not been done properly, by the way, by the federal government and the agencies contracted to do that. So in a situation where waters are now handed over to the federal government, so it would take somebody in my village, for instance, in Imbo, to go to Abuja to get a license to operate the streams, or to use the streams and use the water, or drill a borehole. And we already know the different administrative bottlenecks. So on this note, I'll say the governor of Akwa Ibom State has taken his stance. The Akwa Ibom stakeholders have also spoken. But then it begs for the question, which I hope we could reach out to some of our legislators, because we need to also know what they are doing to champion the voices of Akwa Ibom State. Yes, the governor has spoken. Now the stakeholders have also stated their stand. But what are our legislatures doing in that regards to re-echo the voice of Akwa Ibom people? But let me come to you, MKO.
You have spoken so well. One of the fears, one of the questions people ask is, what are these people looking for? I want to read to us Section 143 of the proposed bill, having to do with the power to acquire land. It says, any of the institutions established pursuant to this bill may acquire for its use in furtherance of its duties under this bill and regulations made pursuant to this bill such land within its area of operation as it shall deem necessary, subject to the provisions of the Land Use Act. What does this imply? It implies that federal government can take over a water body and land that surrounds that water body, turning it into a federal territory, which means that they can do anything they want. And that was one of the fears that was raised, one of the observations, that the issue of Ruga, which has been reoccurring often, that's observation number 10. It was not that it viewed the sustained insistence of the federal government on passing the contentious bill as a likely attempt at enforcing Ruga settlements through the back door, with possible security consequences on erstwhile peaceful communities in Akwa Ibom, Niger Delta, and other places, who were even dealing with the observations. Because of time, can you just please permit me just to take some resolutions which are very critical? I'm very happy that the leader of the House is very versed. I heard what the governor said. One of our guest speakers also mentioned that. But I tell you sincerely, a number of people, including those in leadership position, are not even aware of this bill. They are not even aware that even the executive that made such a statement. So, what are the resolutions? One is that the serial attempt by the federal government and some visible and invisible individuals and interest groups within and outside the National Assembly to reintroduce the twice rejected National Water Resources Bill was an attempt to further expand the exclusive legislative list of the federal government, whereas the dominant issue on how to reposition Nigeria is the practice of true federalism through devolution of powers to states as federating units. Two, that all paramount rulers in their respective domains should summon to their palaces all members of the National Assembly representing their areas to take a position to forestall the passage of the bill. Three, that since the bill is aimed at conferring ownership, control, and management of surface and underground waters on the federal government, it is an affront to the sensibilities of our people. And the participants, therefore, unanimously, totally, and vehemently oppose and reject the bill. That citizens, traditional, religious, political leaders, civil unions, social cultural organizations, students, professional bodies, etc., are enjoined to adopt all peaceful and constitutional means available to ensure the Anti-People's Water Bill does not see the light of day, as was the case in the 8th Assembly when it was rejected twice. That a high-powered delegation of paramount rulers, leadership of open forum, heads of collaborating organizations should, as a matter of urgency, seek audience and meet with His Excellency Mr. Udomi Manuel, the governor of Akwa Ibom State, to officially present the communique of the 8th Open Forum Town Hall meeting for its adoption and immediate action in the interest of the people and land of Akwa Ibom State. 6, that His Excellency Mr. Udomi Manuel be encouraged to summon a meeting with all Akwa Ibom National Assembly members to convey the position of the people of the state for the outright rejection of any attempt to pass into law a highly provocative and vexatious National Water Resources Bill. That the National Assembly members from Niger Delta region and other coastal states in Nigeria, irrespective of political affiliations, should rise against the proposed Water Resources Bill being put forward for the third time for consideration at the National Assembly. 8, that royal fathers, stakeholders, and other interest groups should be prepared to stage a massive protest in the National Assembly at Abuja to kick against the obnoxious Water Resources Bill. 9, that the people should intensify the demand for the practice of true federalism, which distills into devolution of powers with attendant progress, healthy competition for development, security, and well-being of the people, states, regions, and the country. 10, that the statements in the media credited to the Minister of Water Resources, Mr. Suleiman Adamu, that the obviously anti-people, anti-federal structure, and anti-peaceful coexistence National Water Resources Bill must be passed into law under his watch as minister is not only provocative and insightful, but an open threat to the peaceful coexistence of all sections of the country. And we interested to know that the discussion also centered around some conversations, a lawsuit, which most of our people are not even aware. Some northern groups took federal government to court that they should allow Biafra to go. And from what we have been seeing, Akwa Ibom and some South states are part of the Biafra map.
Well, that's not a topic that we can discuss at this point because it's not part of our contention.
Yes, I may have to drop that.
Yes.
But then the conclusion, it says, in conclusion, it is very clear that the reintroduced National Water Resources Bill is anti-people with potential to throw millions of people across Akwa Ibom and Nigeria into multi-dimensional poverty and insecurity, and should not now or ever be allowed to see the light of day. Therefore, we urge the Akwa Ibom State Government, House of Assembly, and critical stakeholders to liaise with stakeholders across South states and beyond to take a unified position on the issue in order to stop the passage of the bill and its impending crisis in the nearest future. This communique is signed by the Civil Secretary Government, who was the chairman, who did Edet, who was the co-chairman, the leader Edet, who was the chairman before, my uncle Citizen Mathew Koffi Okono as the founder and president of Open Forum, the board members, the community committee, which was chaired by veteran journalist and former state chairman of NUJ, Mrs. Well, and all the paramount rulers in Akwa Ibom State.
So that is
epic.
That's the will of the people. That's the will of the government of Akwa Ibom State. But one of the things that we've had challenges with in Nigeria, in Akwa Ibom State, is not in the area of having these robust conversations and debates on topical issues that would affect us. It's been rather on the issue of implementation. Now, the communique has been issued at the end of the debate, and if I recall vividly, this debate has been took place about 2 or 3 weeks back. Yeah. So my next question to you is, what are the things that so far has been implemented? Have the organization and the relevant bodies been able to present these communique to the state government? And have there been a robust engagement? I listened to you, and I heard when you said the representative of the Akwa Ibom people, the senators, the federal house members were to be summoned and asked to take the stance of the Akwa Ibom people in unison with the governor of Akwa Ibom State to the National Assembly, to the Senate. Has that move been done? Have they been summoned? Have they been briefed? And what action, if they have been briefed, what actions have they taken so far?
I thank you so very much for that question. I want to say here, and it's on record, Open Forum is an NGO, and it is an outcome of a burden. You have non-state actors, other places that are giving troubles, that are causing mayhem, and they are making government to spend millions trying to even plead with them, calm down, or take, and don't do, or take, and just allow people go. But we have right a channel that into all this productive initiative. The kind of support I've had, or we in Open have had, is less than 10% of the sacrifice we've been making. And one other thing is that some stakeholders hardly respond to correspondences, even phone calls. Even when you talk, they reply, no actions are taken. But over this matter, because of the involvement of all the paramount rulers in the state and very critical stakeholders, we are very optimistic. By tomorrow, by the grace of God, an official letter will go to the governor on this, but there are other critical stakeholders that I have been trying to interface with, and they are not responding. As I speak, this very communique is supposed to have been on the national scene. I have been begging, sourcing for resources to have this aired. Nothing is forthcoming, but we are not deterred. And we are very optimistic that His Excellency is going to attend to this matter. Like I said, we're supposed to be here with at least 1 or 2 paramount rulers, but because of official engagement they have, it's not possible. But I can assure you that when next you have me on, or you have us on, you will get an update, because we will not relent.
All right. So
a number of persons are more concerned about the next election than the future of our people, which is most critical.
I think this goes back to what the House leader stated yesterday, that as we go into electing a new crop of leaders, it's very critical to understand their body language and their level of involvement in the things that concerns us as a people. And such a thing as the Water Resources Bill is one of such thing. And I'd like to give the floor for the House leader to take us through some more comments that we have before we start entertaining more calls.
Yeah, so let's go back to our Facebook page and get reactions from parliamentarians in response to what we've been discussing so far. And this one's coming from Udemega. It says, Mr. Speaker and the leader of the House, the National Water Resources Bill is a calculated attempt to continue keeping southern Nigeria in bondage. So all legislators from the south must take the bill very serious. And okay, let's move away from this one quickly, and let's get another comment here. This one's coming from parliamentarian Emmanuel Ntekem. It's over a week you haven't read my comment. Okay, we're reading yours now. It says, presidency decrying of debts among the civil servants is a pity, but the FG should do the needful by retiring civil servants due for rest after service year, creating room for employment at that level. The water bill is only a ringing bell, but when it comes to sharing of incentives among the host-bearing communities, the state government will then start denying local government areas that has water. A typical example is denial of Oro as oil-bearing communities. Okay, killing of Christians is typically a religious issue, partly especially by... Okay, we can't take the last line of your comments because they're quite insensitive, and we'll try to do away with such. But thank you all the same for reaching out to us. And this one says, good morning to you all. There seems to be a good direction in the president's idea, but can't there be a policy to reduce the killings to minimum occurrences in Ibege Nelson, referring to the other motion we read out earlier on? And okay, I think those are the few comments we have from now. Keep them coming in. We'll do well to read your messages before the end of the program.
All right, hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, parliamentarian. Welcome to the plenary.
Good morning, the leader of the parliament.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, MKO. Yes, I am Mr. Kenny. I'm calling from you. Mr. Speaker, at the reintroduction of the Water Resources Bill, I think it's a misplaced priority on the part of the sponsors of this bill. I don't know what they seek to achieve through this bill, but what I can say as a citizen is what they seek to achieve is not to the interest of the entire southern people. Mr. Speaker, I want our National Assembly members to do everything within their powers to ensure that this bill does not see the light of the day, because it's not for the interest of the southern people. Mr. Speaker, aside from that, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if it was a native robot or a human being that insulted me on this parliament yesterday. The person has been insulting me. This is the second time. Mr. Speaker, I might not be too religious to forgive him 70 times, 70 times, Mr. Speaker, like the Bible has recommended. But I will forgive him for this last time. But he should not be attacking my opinion. We all entitled to our opinion on this platform. I don't know why he keeps on insulting me. After all, he cannot even talk to the understanding of every parliamentarian. Mr. Speaker, I warned him for the last time. God bless Akwa Ibom, God bless the People's Parliament.
All right, thank you very much. But I'd like to briefly tip in that when you see you've been insulted and then you're insulting back, it therefore places both of you parliamentarians at the same level. And at this point in time, we are advocating for a scenario where you do not attack a fellow parliamentarians, and if a parliamentarian steps over the line, we also would draw your attention back to that. So please, let's be properly guided. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and the House Leader. I don't know what's happened with my line.
All right, we still can barely hear you, parliamentarian. Can you speak up a little more?
Okay, see that deal, not from human beings, from the human. The people here. They want to, expand records, and that will not happen. The Akata is the soul of Akwa Ibom. There is a history
those who supposed to run with that vision don't even understand. By the grace of God, I'm praying, God will relieve us from this burden. Because most of our people are after the local champion. That's not the will of God for us. God wants us to lead our generation. And see, when God gave me that name many years ago, I said, it's not given to me by an individual. It's for our people to come out from the doldrum. It's not the will of God for us to save anybody. To serve God. And the process of serving God, we rule our generation. That's what Dakota is all about. But up till now, I don't know how many of us understand. When I think many of us don't really understand, it's creepy. Why should somebody just right up to bring the water resource thing during a task meeting? There was a lot of problems. That was the grace of God. Many of us would have been killed. And Natal himself would have been killed. But God sustained that man out his name and sustained this state, sustained this region called Niger Delta and Southern in particular.
All right, please wrap up, parliamentarian.
Please, from comfort, I want to let us know. Let us rise up and then seek the spirit of Dakota. If we don't know what to do by the grace of God, ask the people government is playing. So take it like that nobody can kill me. Because the will of God must be done in Nigeria. No devil, no demon, no.
All right, many thanks. The will of God must be done. And I love the fact that you're also ready to take the necessary action so that God's will be done. Right about now, we take a second recess and we'll be bringing you the world in 2 minutes from the BBC, our partners. And shortly after that, we'll bring you some commercials. And when we return, on the flip side of 9:30, the People's Parliament will continue with more discuss on the floor of the 13th plenary session, live on radio. Stay with us.
For the Fukushima nuclear disaster. TEPCO's former chairman and 2 of his colleagues were cleared of negligence at an earlier trial. There are reports that an aircraft has hit a building in the Ukrainian town of Brovary in the Kyiv region. A police spokesman says an explosion near a kindergarten in the town was the result of a helicopter crash. Images on social media show a fire in a built-up area. Human Rights Watch has described the acquittal of the Philippine journalist Maria Ressa as a victory for press freedom. Ms. Ressa, along with her news site Rappler, have been accused of tax evasion. The former Macau gambling tycoon Alvin Chow has been sentenced to 18 years in jail for fraud and running a criminal syndicate. The trial centered on under-the-table bets which deprived Macau of tax revenue. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is due to hold talks in the Swiss city of Zurich with the Chinese Vice Premier Liu He. There are hopes the meeting will contribute towards repairing trade relations. 6 people have been arrested in Hong Kong accused of sedition for publishing and selling a book about the 2019 pro-democracy protests. Officers describe those detained as an anti-government group. Australian scientists have discovered how the echidna, a spiny hedgehog-like mammal, keeps cool even in the hottest temperatures. Echidnas are unable to sweat or lick. Instead, they blow bubbles of mucus, which pop and regulate its body heat. In tennis, the top seed and defending men's singles champion Rafael Nadal has been knocked out in the second round of the Australian Open, losing in straight sets to the American Mackenzie McDonald. BBC News.
The world in 2 minutes.
Iyo ngoma bubukiri nimdum iba iramdi bu iba nimdum ita bangudong tap bangudong gumsen ditang se ufo tum tap media group munsinya planet FM Spectrum Television manis yung finito Kang 102.7 FM. Sinaman sasahan tumke koroduke ta telephone ko sa dinam. Happy doki ko kang angyan ke sebuki ko makara all indigenous language radio station. Inena me bo Top Media Group at packet of Planet 101.1 FM. Ayoki baro Spectrum Television. Ayoki tarong Kang 102.7 FM. Ekini tang idamne bento diagoro.
Before, when I call my guy, before I talk, my man, how far? go here.
You have less than 1 minute for your call.
Auto waiting, but with Edet double, that's steady relating.
My guy, house, Stay connected for longer with the Airtel double plan that gives you 70 minutes talk time plus 3 gigabytes data for just 1,000 naira. Dial star 141 hash. Select my area now.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Love it. Let's ride in Thinker. Like our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and listen live wherever you go. On planet101fm.ng.
Anyone who has achieved anything in life knows that challenges and failures are necessary components of success. They know that when things get hard, that's not always a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're doing something right. Because those hard times are what shape you into the person you're meant to be.
The envy of competition. Planet 101.1 FM. Don't touch the dial.
When I call my guy, before I talk, my man, how far? I go here.
You have less than 1 minute for your call.
Auto waiting, but with Edet double, that's steady relating.
My guy, house, Stay connected for longer with the Airtel double plan that gives you 70 minutes talk time plus 3 gigabytes data for just 1,000 naira. Dial star 141 hash. Select my area now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
It's still the People's Parliament live on Planet Radio 101.1 FM. And of course, if you just joined us, well, you have missed out on so much. This goes on the floor of the House. We'll just kickstart the rest of that conversation by welcoming more contributions from parliamentarians. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
And good morning to all Nigerian people. May the Lord bless us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Mr. Speaker, I'm Friday calling on a Wednesday from Untitled Chapter.
Go ahead.
Speaker, I want to thank God so much for giving us a such person a guest in the studio today. I want to believe if we can have this kind of people coming up to put our heads and our ideas together to see what we can do in the country and the Akwa Ibom state, is a welcome people. I pray may the Lord strengthen him and give them a success in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Madam Speaker, for the issue, I want to plead with him. He should forgive. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we have the reason to form the Akwa Ibom Radio Callers Association. That is one of the major points, so that we educate people on how to go on air, so that let him not put it in his mind. He should know that things like that will happen. Let him forgive. And they should, I hereby have called every caller in Akwa Ibom and outside Akwa Ibom to come and join Akwa Ibom Radio Callers Association. Like tomorrow, we are having our general meeting, Mr. Speaker. So that is why to educate so many people on how to go on air, so that we not bring problem to the Parliament and the other Callers Association. God bless you and bless Akwa Ibom. Thank you. God bless you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, many thanks for joining us. And if you let us know the day of the meeting, maybe the House Leader or myself would stop by to say a very big thank you to all the radio callers for always being part of the People's Parliament. We'll take one more call before we head out to the comments section. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Mr. Speaker, my heart is great. All
right, briefly, please.
Something important like this that affecting the soul of the people, not just a fighter. They want to pass that. We definitely don't want us to even exist as a people. That's why they feel we should be serving as a house boys out here. But it will not happen. And that cannot continue. I know that's the reason God gave me that name many years ago. There have been lots of local and international enemies, fighting to make sure that Akinwumi is no more available. But I can never go anywhere. So what people are doing, call political play, you can know what is going on now. How many days have you even heard anybody inviting me to the government now? But I have a duty I'm doing for our people, not just in Akwa Ibom, but for the South Side, so that our people should claim what belongs to them.
Indeed, our people will claim what belongs to them, but the key virtues and the key qualities must be found within the South region, within Akwa Ibom State. And it takes my mind back to the issue he just raised about Akwa Ibom people being known as housemates and gate men and all of those things. But I come back to the floor of the House, to the House Leader to take over the mic.
Yes, it's very interesting that, just before we went in that short recess, I was having a tete-a-tete with MKO, and we both seem to agree that people have not been properly inundated about the National Water Bill. Most persons are hearing it for the first time. Those who have heard it long before now do not understand the nitty-gritty part of what this bill means and what they stand to lose as a people if we allow this to push through. The governor described it as dangerous. If I have to give my views as a Nigerian, I'll say it's a very evil bill that should not be allowed to pass. And I have my reasons for actually saying so, because it means you're going to deprive people the very basic amenities of life that we all came to see. A bill like this cannot actually go through in so many other climes. It would actually fail at the first time of asking. But the fact that parliamentarians at the National Assembly were able to allow it to go through first and second reading means to me that it is more of politicking, because someone had the wherewithal to succeed with lobbying, and that was why I was able to scale through. But I like to believe that Nigerians with right minds and right-thinking individuals saw the need not to allow this bill to scale through, and that's why they opposed it at that time. But the fact that it was reintroduced again, some would say maybe let's equally look at it from the angle of those who are saying that there are benefits accrued to having the National Water Bill scale through. Aside from the financial incentives and the other issues, other underlying issues, as perhaps making sure that there are provision of clean water for Nigerians and the health aspects to all of it, I do agree to an extent. But the fact that you're going to deprive a whole lot of people of an ability to have access to water, which is something that everyone should ordinarily have a right to, without having to go through the bureaucracy that this bill actually provides, I think it should be shunned. But the fact that some persons are trying to push through it means to me that there's more politic into this than meets the eye. And I think those who are at the forefront of the fight to, withstand whatever it is that the proponents of this bill are trying to arrive at, I think we need to commend them, and if for anything, give them the support that they need to scale through. Let's find out what more parliamentarians are saying, and we'll quickly touch on this one. It's coming from Bro John. He says, President Buhari has never blamed the governor of Kaduna for the killing of Christians. It is undemocratic, and what measures are put in place to end bandits and terrorists in the north has proven no tangible results. And on the other issue, he says Vice President Sibanjo should know that orientation is key for the youths to know individuals who can make our democracy more valuable for nation building. Voters in Akwa Ibom State should vote wisely by looking at campaign manifestos of their candidates, look at their past grassroots development, check if they have a bad record of corruption for nation building. I think these are in response to the other issues we're likely looking at today.
All right, very much appreciate you, House Leader. A couple of more comments before we come back to the floor. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning,
Hello,
parliamentarian.
good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to the leader of the House.
Yes, good morning.
This welcome the Prince Art Manager.
Welcome.
Madam Speaker, the National Water Resources Bill is an act of treason. It's an act of treason to the people of the South and the people of the country. So if Nnamdi Kanu can be tried, anyone that breaks such a bill should also be tried to know the motive behind. Are you getting me? We have a land. We have a land. You have other resources. I have other resources. And you are now trying to claim my resources. Land and the waterway are the same. Are you getting me? We know our boundary. Someone from Asamusoyang knows his boundary of his waterways to another place. So the federal government cannot come in to control my waterways, taking away our inheritance, controlling our inheritance. So we, the people, have condemned it in entirety. But the leadership now is trying to put uncertainty, problems to the people. It's an act of making a kind of secession. So anybody that brought this kind of bill is trying to do a secession act. So what is the place of the judiciary? The judiciary need to step in. It's a national issue to check and balance. It shouldn't wait for me to go to the court. They should call the Nigerian Bar Association, should call anyone that brought such a nasty and a bill that doesn't gender peace and unity, which is the core mandate of Nigerian people. Are you getting me, Mr. Speaker?
All right.
It's not time for joke.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's not time for joke. We need to be serious. That's a very big message sent by the parliamentarian who just spoke to us this morning. Now let's quickly look into other issues that we had also on the floor of the House. I look at the issue of killing, for instance, which has happened severally across the nook and crannies of this country. And today, for the first time, I'm hearing the Nigerian president coming out to say it's not about a religious affair, but a criminal activity by some persons. Now, we've had killings in Kaduna, we've had killings in Jos, we've had killings across some states in Nigeria that are religiously or seem to have been religiously motivated. But none, or we've not seen people who committed those crimes being, executed. Take, for instance, the issue of the late Deborah that was stoned to death in broad daylight. We are yet to see the Nigerian government or the government of that state come out to say, this amount of persons have been arrested and this amount of persons have been found guilty and prosecuted for the killing of Deborah and many others of several in situations like that. I'll come back to you, Citizen MCO. Let's have this conversation. As a Nigerian citizen, do you think President Muhammadu Buhari's talk is just another political gimmick or something that should be followed with a will that he's not followed yet?
Well, thank you. That perspective is not strange. It's not strange because we have never seen the level of killings we've had in the last 7 to 8 years. And virtually nobody is standing trial. What we regularly have is that people are branded to be repentant and then return to society where more havoc is carried out. When you know the demands of the terrorists and what they call bandits, and the fact that very highly placed persons have even come out very recently to say that the incoming government, anybody that says he's going to fight bandits, is going to kill bandits, that person will not have their vote because bandits are entitled to their life and they are sort of because they're doing business and all that. So I don't agree with what Mr. President has said. For me, I had excused Mr. President long ago when he said that age will not allow him to deliver on the mandate, and honestly, we must take somebody's word for it. Mr. President does not lie. I find that a number of people try to lie on his behalf, so when he speaks, you will get to know his mindset. There's no doubt that the killings we've been having, where people will invade a community, kill virtually everybody, take over the land, and even rename it, there are histories to that effect. That is why you find people like Samuel Otom, who is virtually the most traumatized governor in Nigeria. I would like to think what he said about even the WhatsApp bill. The report here says that Samuel Otom had described the reintroduction of the bill as evil and part of the agenda of the federal government to seize land from the 36 states of the Federation, and he has urged his people to reject it outrightly. So, people who go to communities to kill innocent inhabitants and farmers and then take over their lands. What do you call them? That's not criminality. That is beyond criminality. And for the fact that these people they have spokespersons. These people sometimes come out on live TV to defend their actions. Some of the masterminds, the non-state actors, even are given very high chieftaincy titles, like it happened recently. And why did they say? They said, no, we want to make him an integral part of the community because he has achieved a lot, he's a terrorist, he's this and that, so that there could be peace. What do we call that? Nigeria, we must be able to speak for ourselves. And nobody needs to speak for himself if you are not informed, which is one of the key things that we are doing with Open Forum. We are all vulnerable. Voters are vulnerable. The only people that are not vulnerable are politicians, and there are very few of them. And they hold the larger society to ransom. Even the wealthy ones are also vulnerable because when you find some hoodlums who have garnered so much power, no matter your wealth, you become subject to them. You find even some governors, some very highly placed people, you may feel they are the one leading, they are not. They are just at the mercy of some very small groups of persons who have, by involvement of democracy, become entrenched and so powerful. You may not even know that they are the ones calling the shot. So, nothing will liberate us than intentional citizenship education. The people that want to grab whatever they want to grab by whatever means, like this obnoxious, very unthinkable water resources bill that was rejected twice and being brought again the third time, almost towards the end of the administration, it shows that there's something that they are intentional about. And you cannot resist such a thing if you are not also intentional. But how many people want to speak up? So that they will give you food, so that you are aligned, so that you belong, so that they will not kill you. It's so unfortunate. But one thing is sure, I was born in the 60s. I saw the war as a child. I heard how my father used to talk. I heard elders talk. And by the grace of God, I've gone to the point that I didn't work with elders at the level that I operate. I'm the second general of the Elders Forum. That's one of the highest offices I can ever think of at the level of community service. But do people speak out like our forefathers used to do? Do we hold opinion? Where are the upper of our generation? A man that was the apostle of not just resource control, but practice of true federalism. It sounded as if it was too much ahead of his time. But here we are still. Almost 24 years after Buhari was shouting and fighting for all these things, our people have gone cold. I want to appeal to our people, not just in Akwa Ibom, but South, and in fact Nigerians, that we should not allow non-state actors who cannot come on air like this and defend what they say they represent. That some of us that don't even have resources, some of us that have been impoverished by the system, are the ones saying, if I perish, I perish. Let me give my all to society. And I say, no support, but we keep doing it, and it borders on the miraculous. So the issue of that what is going on, the killings, this does not religious, it is religious. Boko Haram came clear. We want practice of Sharia, that's purely religious. And you heard what somebody like the governor of Kaduna State, Kaduna Ganduje, what he said on video at a forum where we had also Islamic clerics. That was their intention towards having the same faith ticket. It's very dangerous that you could have such thinking that also is a jihad. It's religious. And you cannot defend, you cannot even speak to it if you are not informed. So I appreciate what People's Parliament is doing. Very seasoned leader of the House, very seasoned, Mr. Speaker, that people are getting informed. Like what you have just brought on air now, we just hope other stations will key in and help us to let people know what is happening so that they can raise their voices and demand their National Assembly members and our leaders to key into this. We are only a platform to help our people, to help our leaders know that they are people that are patriotic enough. We don't need to be induced. In fact, I'm doing this as a protest. This is the least I can do as a person, as my contribution to state and national development. Imagine if we have a budget. We do this without a zero budget and going everywhere and trekking. And that reminds me, please, I need to say this. I saw an accident at Ibono. The day I went to see the paramount of Ibono, I went there twice, but by the grace of God, I had access to the man, had a very wonderful, over 1 hour meeting with him in his private room. And then by the time I was coming back, I saw an accident. Right before me, the bike guy was knocked down. That remaining axis of that road leading to the terminal that's not completed, people drive one way. I learned that there's no month that people are not knocked down and healed on that road. Please let government do something about it. Because I took bike to 4 local government areas across the state. I took bike from Edet to Edet. I took bike from Abak to Temeko to Kanafon back to Abak. So
all right.
You see that you feel the people, you see these things happen, and you hear the real people. So I'm just using this opportunity to say, please, that road, that small section should be completed so that people should not stop driving one way and get killed, because it could have been me.
All right. Thank you very much, Citizen MKO. I'll let the House Leader just briefly wrap up and take his leave, as he has to be excused for other responsibilities.
Yes, it's an interesting discourse, and I couldn't agree less with whether or not the rhetoric around the state of insecurity in the country and the killing of Christians has been pinned on a religious crisis or not. The federal government is simply not trying to stoke up tensions, which is why I think they're saying no one should attach the killings of Christians and several others across the country to a religious war. But the fact that those who are perpetrating these heinous acts have equally come out to state the reasons why they're doing so means we cannot shy away from the ugly truth that, yes, it is indeed a religious crisis. You mentioned Boko Haram a short while ago. Well, aside saying that they kick against Western education, we've seen with a period of time that they've had control over some state and local governments in the northeastern parts of the country, mounting Islamic and Sharia flags. They've all said this is what we want to do, and the areas they've controlled so far, not just Boko Haram, ISWAP have also had related areas where they've had control in the northeastern part of the country. They've been pushing through their Islamic rhetoric. And one of the comments I got on Facebook, of course, questioned why the federal government or the president has not called Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna to order, in spite of the rather unprofessional, unbecoming statement of a chief executive that he has made in recent time, which is only whipping up the sentiment and making most Nigerians feel unsafe. A bulk of the attacks carried out by Boko Haram at the height of the insurgency were all targeted at Christian formations and installations. So what has the government done in this regard? Other questions surrounding the whereabouts of Lei Sharibu, the girls who were kidnapped in Chibok. There's been rumors, still largely unconfirmed, but arising from investigations carried out by independent bodies and journalists, have shown that most of the girls who were Christians are pretty much the ones who have not been allowed to go back home by the Boko Haram commanders. Most of them married off against their wishes. But we've heard reports of some of the girls being released. And then after some routine of investigations, we find out they are those of the Muslim stock. If the government continues allowing this to continue, it would only allow those who premise their arguments that the attack on Christians are religiously motivated to continue. Unless we see a change in this regard, beginning from comments made by the government themselves and the actions that we see on ground, then these issues will continue. I'll quickly take one reaction from Facebook. Inyebon Wasanga says, good morning, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Parliament. This says on water bill, Nigeria's challenges is our structural framework, and until our constitution is overhauled and laws enacted that would allow various tiers of government to function independently as federated nations, such bills will never cease to pop up. On the untimely death of civil servants, let the government factor proper incentives and let civil servants rather be sincere with their real age, seek timely and necessary medication duly, and all will be well. We certainly hope so. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Mr. Speaker.
All right, many thanks. And that's the size of a package on the floor of the 13th plenary session live on Planet Radio. Please remember to be a responsible citizen of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria, and the world. My name is Francis Edet, and as the speaker, today's plenary session has come to an end. Let's see you again and do have another robust conversation tomorrow on the floor of the House. Many thanks to Citizen MKO for joining us. Many thanks to you who joined us through the phone line, online, and of course through the Facebook to join us in the conversations. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless Akwa Ibom State. And to our representatives, please speak up for the interests of the Akwa Ibom people, the interests of the South region, and the interests of Nigeria. Bye-bye.